A violent altercation erupted suddenly aboard the aircraft, shattering the fragile semblance of peace that usually prevails in such confined spaces. The chaos ignited when a group of women, despite the dimmed lights in the cabin, persisted in their lively chatter, refusing to silence their voices or quiet their conversation. Their persistent noise, seemingly trivial to some, became the spark that ignited a powder keg of underlying tensions. As the minutes passed, the atmosphere grew increasingly strained, until at last, the tension burst forth in a tumult of screams, pushing, shoving, and frantic grappling that unfolded right there in midair, high above the earth. The incident was captured on video, which swiftly spread across social media, becoming a viral sensation. The reactions were sharp and divided. Some commenters criticized the unruly behavior with words like "no manners, no shame," while others expressed concern about the broader implications, warning that the nation was on the verge of unraveling. This violent outburst was more than just a moment of chaos. It was a stark reflection of a society strained to its limits, where even the simplest, light-hearted exchanges can escalate into chaos. The root causes of such disturbances are not rooted in grand conflicts like war or rebellion, but in the more insidious, pervasive scourge of famine. Beneath the surface of daily life, young people are huddled under bridges and within abandoned, crumbling towers, desperately seeking shelter. Elderly individuals, often still compelled to work well into their old age, do so merely to survive amid the relentless hardships. Today, we delve into the depths of a country whose once glittering dreams of wealth and prosperity have faded into the background, replaced by a landscape dominated by debt, homelessness, and a disintegrating sense of trust among its people. First, consider the cities, once bustling hubs of commerce and affluence, that are now overwhelmed by homelessness and poverty. Major urban centers such as Shenzhen, Chengdu, and Beijing are witnessing a harsh transformation. As night falls, the streets become haunting scenes of despair, with an increasing number of individuals finding themselves without a roof over their heads. Migrants seeking better opportunities, recent university graduates eager to establish themselves, and even former white-collar workers who once enjoyed stable employment now find themselves sleeping under bridges, rummaging through trash for food, or broadcasting their daily struggles live from the streets in a desperate bid to survive. By the beginning of this year, estimates indicated that nearly 300 million migrant workers were spread across the country, many of whom lack official registration within their cities. This lack of official status bars them from accessing basic social services, such as government housing, healthcare, or social security, leaving them vulnerable. As the cost of living continues to soar and job opportunities dwindle, hundreds of thousands of these displaced individuals find themselves without permanent shelter. Independent researchers suggest that more than 2,600,000 people are either entirely homeless or living under extremely precarious circumstances. The worst-hit areas are the country's largest metropolises, including Beijing and Shenzhen, where the disparity between wealth and poverty has become painfully visible. Once celebrated as the capital of millionaires and economic prosperity, the city now bears the scars of this decline. Tents erected along sidewalks amidst once luxurious high-rise buildings, now mostly vacant and looming in decay. These towering structures, originally marketed as middle-class luxury residences, stand as hollowed-out symbols of failed dreams. Across the street, long lines form every morning at charity kitchens, where people crowd together for a simple bowl of porridge, food they cannot afford to buy elsewhere. Scenes like these have become so commonplace that they no longer evoke shock or outrage. Instead, they blend into the fabric of daily life, as if they have always been part of the city's landscape. Meanwhile, many young people, after years of arduous study and striving for a better future, have turned to streaming platforms as a means of earning a livelihood. Some broadcast themselves sleeping on the roadside, hoping to attract small donations from viewers who find a strange comfort in sharing these moments of vulnerability. Others gather bottles and discarded cardboard beneath neon-lit signs, silently wandering between shop windows that once promised prosperity, now deserted and decaying. The tents remain pitched on the sidewalks, and the makeshift encampments persist despite the passage of time, unnoticed and unchallenged. Nobody pays them any mind anymore. Somewhere at the edge of a shopping mall, beneath the flickering glow of a street lamp, A tired individual is wrapping up a broadcast, eyes hollow from exhaustion and hunger. The city continues its relentless march forward, indifferent to the suffering around it. It moves on, as do the people, each one caught in their own struggle to survive amid the chaos and collapse. Number 2. Mass unemployment. Today in China, the challenge of youth unemployment has transcended its previous status as a temporary difficulty, gradually transforming into a defining feature of an entire generation's experience. As of June in the year 2025, the official unemployment rate among young people aged 16 to 24, excluding students, stood at 14.5%. This alarming figure is nearly 3 times higher than the targets set by the government, highlighting a significant disconnect between policy expectations and reality. Moreover, this statistic does not even account for those young individuals who have become so disillusioned or discouraged that they have simply ceased to look for work altogether, effectively dropping out of the labor force entirely. In response to this escalating crisis, at the beginning of the year, China's State Council announced a series of short-term measures aimed at alleviating the mounting pressure on young job seekers. These initiatives included offering tax reductions and incentives for small businesses, providing partial unemployment insurance benefits, and implementing deferrals on Social Security contributions for employers. On paper, these policies appeared swift and promising, designed to stimulate hiring and ease financial burdens. Yet, despite the optimism embedded in these plans, many recent graduates found the job market to remain as unforgiving and competitive as ever. This summer alone, more than 12 million college graduates are entering the workforce, an unprecedented surge in the number of educated youth seeking employment within a single year, marking the largest influx in the nation's history. Among these hopeful young people is a 23-year-old woman named Almoli from Chongqing, who, like many others, migrated to the bustling city of Shenzhen in search of new opportunities and a better future. She has been diligently sending out her resume for more than 4 months, only to face repeated silence and rejection. Every week, new job openings are announced, and yet her applications are met with the same unspoken refusal, as if the opportunities are evaporating before her eyes. What should have been a joyful and confident step into adulthood has instead become an exhausting and often discouraging quest for stability, a journey marked by uncertainty and unfulfilled expectations. Meanwhile, government officials continue to highlight the potential of emerging industries, such as clean energy, artificial intelligence, electric vehicles, drones, and biopharmaceuticals. They trumpet these sectors as the future engines of employment, projecting that together, they will generate more than 12 million new jobs by the end of the following year. However, the reality on the ground paints a more complex picture. Many of these new positions demand highly specialized skills and advanced technical knowledge, which many recent graduates simply do not possess. The hiring processes in these sectors tend to be slow and meticulous, often requiring extensive training, certifications, or industry-specific connections that young job seekers frequently lack. Meanwhile, the older, more established industries, such as manufacturing, consumer electronics, and private tutoring, are experiencing mass layoffs. Thousands of office jobs have been eliminated as companies restructure or downsize, leaving a shrinking pool of vacancies for an ever-growing number of graduates. The once cherished degree from a reputable university, especially in fields like engineering, business, or the sciences, has lost much of its former value in the face of a contracting job market. In response to these bleak prospects, many young people are turning to freelancing as an alternative. Some deliver food on motorcycles, working grueling 10 to 12-hour shifts daily without access to insurance or any form of job security. Others stream live footage of their everyday lives on social media platforms, hoping that digital tips from viewers will suffice to cover their basic needs, including food and rent. A significant portion of this generation now drifts between internships, short-term contracts, and long stretches of waiting, often without any income at all, caught in a cycle of temporary employment and uncertainty. The root of these problems lies in the collapse of the old economic model that once propelled China's rapid rise. For over a decade, the country's economic growth had been fundamentally built upon 3 main pillars: construction, low-cost manufacturing, and a booming real estate market. These industries weren't merely sectors of the economy. They served as the backbone of China's ascent on the global stage, transforming it into a world economic powerhouse within a few decades. However, this sturdy structure is now crumbling. The construction industry, in particular, is experiencing a noticeable decline, as interest in housing diminishes among consumers and investors alike. In the first half of 2025, real estate investment plummeted by more than 11% compared to previous periods, signaling a sharp contraction. Correspondingly, the number of new construction projects has fallen by approximately 20%, further evidence of the sector's waning momentum. This downturn not only impacts the economy at large but also exacerbates the unemployment crisis among youth, as the industries that once absorbed the largest share of new entrants are now shrinking rapidly. This situation indicates that developers are either exercising extreme caution, perhaps hesitant to undertake new projects amid uncertainty, or they have simply exhausted their financial reserves, leaving little room for further risk-taking. The real estate market, which for many years was regarded as a dependable avenue for safeguarding wealth and building stability, is now undergoing an extraordinary crisis of historic proportions. Major corporations such as Evergrande and Country Garden have found themselves embroiled in serious financial distress, with some of these once powerful entities already declaring bankruptcy. These failures are not isolated incidents but rather symptoms of a broader, more profound problem, a crisis that many commentators are now describing as the most severe in China's entire history of real estate development. In numerous provinces across the country, the secondary housing market has nearly ground to a halt. Apartments that once flew off the shelves now sit vacant, their windows dark and unoccupied, while formerly lively residential neighborhoods have taken on an almost eerie stillness, devoid of the usual hustle and vibrancy. The sense of trust in the market and in the institutions supporting it is waning, fueling a growing atmosphere of uncertainty and apprehension among consumers and investors alike. For decades, owning a home in China symbolized stability and represented a tangible step toward personal success and financial security. That faith, however, is now rapidly eroding, leaving many feeling insecure about their investments and the future. This decline in confidence extends beyond individual homeowners to impact the overall economy, which has long relied on consumer spending driven by the belief in property as a safe harbor. As trust diminishes, so too does consumer enthusiasm, leading to a slowdown in economic growth that is difficult to reverse. Meanwhile, China's traditional role as a global manufacturing hub, particularly known for its low-cost production, is losing its edge. Rising wages, coupled with persistent trade conflicts and geopolitical tensions, are compelling numerous foreign companies to relocate their manufacturing facilities elsewhere. Between the years 2012 and 2023, the number of foreign enterprises operating within China's real estate sector more than halved, reflecting a clear shift in international confidence and strategic priorities. Global investors, increasingly wary of risks, are favoring markets that offer greater safety, transparency, and predictability. As a result, key industries such as steel, cement, and solar power are now grappling with significant overcapacity issues, producing more than the market can absorb. Producer prices have been falling for 33 consecutive months, a clear indicator of weakening domestic demand and mounting deflationary pressures that threaten to stifle economic momentum further. Despite these challenges, official forecasts continue to project a growth rate of approximately 5% for the year 2025. Yet, many analysts argue that this optimistic figure is largely a result of government interventions, such as fiscal stimulus and technological measures, rather than genuine market-driven expansion. While China's economy is not on the brink of collapse, it remains resilient in many respects, continuing to operate and maintain strength in various sectors. However, beneath the surface of this apparent stability lie stalled engines of growth. The pressing question is no longer about how fast the economy can expand but whether it can sustain its current trajectory and what fundamental changes are necessary to ensure future stability and prosperity. Turning to the social and psychological landscape, a subtle but profound transformation is unfolding within Chinese cities. An emerging underclass, often invisible to the broader narrative of rapid development, is taking shape, comprising young people who find themselves without jobs, housing, or social security. In megacities like Shenzhen, Chongqing, and Xi'an, it has become disturbingly common to see recent graduates sleeping rough under bridges, standing in long lines for free food distributions, or streaming content online just to earn enough money to buy dinner. Some of these young individuals live in internet cafes, seeking temporary refuge, while others have set up tents near metro stations, trying to survive amid the urban chaos. Recent research conducted mid-year reveals that nearly 12% of urban youth now live under precarious conditions, lacking stable incomes or access to social safety nets. The once celebrated graduation season, which symbolized hope and the promise of a bright future, is now overshadowed by anxiety and uncertainty. Out of more than 12 million new graduates this year, a significant number remain unemployed even during the summer months, despite the end of the academic year. Job hunting has become an arduous process. Job boards are overcrowded, interviews are scarce, and many young people find themselves facing silence, an especially painful and discouraging response from potential employers. Mental health issues among these young job seekers are increasingly documented, with surveys revealing high rates of depression, chronic anxiety, and feelings of despair. The combination of economic stagnation, limited opportunities, and societal pressures is taking a toll on their well-being, creating a complex social challenge that is likely to persist as the country grapples with its evolving economic landscape. Alongside these mounting challenges, the very nature of crime within the country is undergoing a profound transformation. Incidents of dormitory crashes, violent confrontations, or collapses in shared living spaces are becoming more frequent, often resulting from overcrowded conditions or neglect. Disputes with delivery workers, who are increasingly relied upon in a booming e-commerce environment, frequently escalate into conflicts, sometimes turning violent or resulting in legal battles. Additionally, cases of fraudulent job postings are on the rise, trapping unwary job seekers in schemes that promise employment but deliver deception or exploitation. In the provinces of Jiangsu and Guangdong, law enforcement agencies have uncovered several alarming cases where individuals were lured into seemingly legitimate training courses, only to find themselves caught in the clutches of illegal factories operating under the guise of educational programs. Some of these individuals were held for weeks without any remuneration, effectively imprisoned in these clandestine workplaces. Others were coerced into debt bondage, forced to work tirelessly to pay off fictitious or inflated commissions, their freedom and dignity compromised in the process. The most vulnerable among these groups are migrants hailing from rural regions. Without official registration or household residency in the cities, known as hukou, these migrants are systematically deprived of essential services such as healthcare, affordable housing, and lawful employment opportunities. In their desperation, many turn to the gray market, relying on unofficial apps and platforms to prepare food, assemble electronics, or conduct other small-scale economic activities, often without formal contracts or social insurance. Some find themselves drawn into even more perilous situations, becoming entangled in underground prostitution rings or participating in online fraud schemes that prey on the unwary. By the middle of Div Taisachi Divadkat Pat, studies reveal that more than half of China's informal workforce remains unprotected by pension schemes, leaving them vulnerable in old age. A significant portion also lacks health insurance coverage, despite the existence of basic healthcare provisions on paper. In practice, the high costs and bureaucratic hurdles prevent many migrants and informal workers from accessing these services, leaving their health and well-being at constant risk. What binds all these stories together is not necessarily political ideology or policy ideology, but the fundamental human struggle for survival. An entire generation is growing up amidst the towering skyscrapers and the labyrinth of crowded passageways that define modern Chinese cities. Their dreams of stability, success, and a better future have not vanished entirely. Instead, they have been postponed, reshaped by fatigue, and weighed down by the pervasive uncertainty of their circumstances. Their aspirations remain alive, but they are now hidden beneath layers of exhaustion, deferred into an indefinite future. Turning to the issue of household finances, the weight of debt, particularly mortgages, has become a suffocating burden for many families. During the summer months of July 2025, official economic data indicated that China's gross domestic product had grown by more than 5% in the second quarter of the year. This figure surpassed expectations, driven largely by a surge in exports and substantial government subsidies designed to stimulate growth. On the surface, the economy appears to be functioning smoothly, resilient and expansive. However, beneath this veneer lies a different, more troubling reality. This veneer masks a silent collapse, that of personal financial stability, under the relentless pressure of mounting debts. Across the nation, the dream of owning a home has transformed from a symbol of stability and success into a heavy financial burden. Nearly two-thirds of household debt now consists of mortgage obligations, yet for many individuals and families, these properties are not sources of comfort or investment. Instead, they serve as stark, concrete reminders of lost stability, empty symbols of aspiration turned to liabilities. In major urban centers, property prices have experienced notable declines. Some apartment complexes remain unfinished, abandoned midway through construction, while others have depreciated to the point where they are worth almost nothing. Families continue to make monthly payments on properties they cannot occupy, nor can they sell, effectively trapping them in a cycle of debt and despair. Take, for example, Frank Huang, a 28-year-old teacher from Chengdu, Guangxi. For several months, he has not received his salary, yet he persists quietly, living off the support of his aging parents. "I'm just enduring it," he says softly, a shadow of resignation in his voice. "I'm afraid to quit my job. If I got married, took out a mortgage, bought a car, and had a child, the pressure would be overwhelming." Frank's situation is far from unique. Data shows that since the early 21st century, household debt in China has increased dramatically, from just over 10% of the country's gross domestic product to more than 60% by mid-D Taisachi Divad Cat Pat. While this level of indebtedness approaches that of many of the world's wealthiest nations, it does so without the extensive social safety nets, such as advanced welfare programs or comprehensive healthcare, that typically accompany such economic development elsewhere. Simultaneously, the nature of work itself is becoming increasingly unstable, with job security diminishing and the future growing ever more uncertain for those striving to make ends meet. Teachers, civil servants, and factory workers are all facing the harsh reality of delayed wages or outright pay cuts, their financial stability slipping further from their grasp with each passing day. Meanwhile, a new generation of young professionals finds itself caught in a relentless struggle to keep afloat. Many are compelled to take on multiple part-time jobs, tutoring students after hours, delivering food in all weather, or selling used goods online, just to meet their mounting mortgage payments. It's a continuous, exhausting balancing act, with no real respite in sight, as each day brings a fresh wave of financial pressure and uncertainty. Once, the Chinese dream symbolized the promise of a new apartment, an emblem of personal achievement, social status, and a hopeful outlook toward the future. It represented the aspiration of owning a home that would stand as a testament to one's hard work and a secure foundation for family life. Today, however, for millions, this dream has morphed into a burdensome trap. Instead of a source of pride, their homes have become monuments of obligation, symbols of duty to repay debts rather than personal triumphs. Where Nadezhda once lived peacefully, there now echoes only silence, accompanied by the heaviness of a future that feels increasingly out of reach, slipping further away with each passing year. Number 6. The middle class, once the backbone of China's rapid economic ascent, is now quietly dissolving. This once proud segment, which had driven growth and prosperity, is now drifting with the ebb and flow of an uncertain tide. Between the years 2020, over 400 million individuals rose from modest beginnings to become China's new middle class, investing in homes, pursuing higher education for their children, traveling abroad, and genuinely believing that tomorrow would bring better opportunities and greater security. These were the people who dared to dream of upward mobility, fueling the nation's rapid development with their aspirations and hard work. But by July of 2025, that sense of hope seemed increasingly distant. The foundation of their dreams was revealed to be shaky at best, built not on solid economic fundamentals, but on real estate speculation, leveraged borrowing, and relentless growth that outpaced stability. The once promising ascent now shows cracks and fissures. More than 70% of family wealth is tied up in real estate, often frozen in properties that have lost their value. In cities like Chengdu or Shijiazhuang, it's not unusual to see households owning 2 or 3 apartments, some of which are still under construction, while others may never be completed at all. Pensioners, having spent their savings on housing, now find themselves living in empty concrete shells, their investments turning into lifeless monuments. Mortgage payments persist, yet the property's worth has vanished, leaving families burdened with debts on assets that no longer provide security. Since 2020, the government's increased focus on risk control measures, such as the infamous 3 red lines policy, has set off a chain reaction that has shaken the entire financial landscape. The collapse of Evergrande, a colossal real estate developer drowning in debts exceeding $300 billion, became a stark symbol of the broader crisis engulfing the sector. Thousands of construction projects were abruptly abandoned, leaving countless families devastated as their homes remained unfinished or unlivable. In an instant, many lost not only their homes but also their life savings, which had been invested in these now derelict properties. This collapse had profound ripple effects across the economy. Retail spending plummeted sharply, more than 15% in major cities, reflecting widespread consumer hesitation and fear. Over 60% of middle-class families have postponed major purchases, from cars and vacations to household appliances, even cutting back on essentials. Many are tightening their belts so severely that they are now saving on basic needs, driven not by optimism but by anxiety. This pervasive fear has replaced any remnants of ambition, causing small businesses to shutter their doors and restaurants to sit empty. Luxury brands and car dealerships are reporting declining customer traffic, a sign of waning disposable income. As consumption declines, a vicious cycle unfolds, layoffs increase, further dampening demand and deepening the economic downturn. Sectors like tourism, electronics, and education are experiencing notable setbacks, each reflecting the broader malaise. Yet beneath all these sobering statistics lies a deeper, more profound crisis, a crisis of faith. Young people, once eager to build their futures with confidence and hope, are now retreating into minimalism or disengaging altogether from the race for prosperity. Middle-aged individuals, watching their financial safety nets unravel, also see their sense of identity dissolving along with their wealth. Quietly, they ask themselves in despair, what was it all for? For many, the once cherished Chinese dream has transformed from an inspiring vision into an unbearable burden, one that they no longer wish to carry. And most revealing of all is the fact that they are deeply unwilling to see their children bear the burden of their own struggles and sacrifices. Their concern extends beyond personal hardship to the future generations, highlighting a collective aversion to passing on pain or hardship. Moving on to the 7th point, the response of the government and the pervasive denial that masks underlying issues. On a bright, clear morning in July of the year 2025, the country's state television begins its broadcast with sweeping aerial footage captured by drones, showcasing vast, golden wheat fields shimmering under the sun, accompanied by lively, optimistic music that seems to promise renewal and hope. The presenter, appearing confident and composed, with a reassuring smile, proclaims that the nation is steadfastly progressing toward a renaissance of rural prosperity. Viewers are told that factory orders are on the rise, signaling a revitalization of industry. They hear that green technology startups are on the verge of hiring thousands of new workers, and that cooperatives in villages are exporting fresh fruit to faraway lands, expanding their reach and influence. However, beneath this veneer of progress, the reality remains starkly different. University graduates, in large numbers, continue to search desperately for employment, their hopes dashed by a sluggish job market. Meanwhile, unfinished residential towers, symbols of halted development, stand fenced off and deserted, their skeletal structures silent witnesses to halted ambitions. Since the previous fall, the official monthly reports on youth unemployment have vanished without explanation. The government claims these figures are under technical review, but no new data is released to the public. Independent researchers, attempting to gauge the true state of affairs, post their own estimates on internal forums. Yet, their messages are swiftly deleted before midday, erased in an effort to maintain the illusion of stability. Videos capturing mortgage holders protesting outside local government offices, pleading for relief, disappear within minutes of being uploaded, replaced by content showcasing cooking tutorials or patriotic songs designed to uplift and distract. Search queries that once led to news about layoffs now redirect to stories celebrating heroic entrepreneurs and their innovative pursuits. The propaganda machine is relentless, never ceasing to spin a narrative of unyielding optimism. Posters in subway stations proclaim slogans about trust, consumption, and a bright, promising future. Loudspeakers in areas undergoing renovation blare advertisements urging citizens to spend money proudly and to believe wholeheartedly in the promise of economic recovery. In coastal manufacturing hubs, local news reports trumpet each new export order, carefully omitting mention of the warehouses filled with unsold machinery and inventory. Meanwhile, in inland provinces, journalists are shown rural fairs with staged harvest scenes and carefully chosen interviewees, presenting an image of rural vitality that masks the underlying stagnation. Yet, beneath this orchestrated display, there is no real assistance reaching those in need. The measures taken are insufficient and often superficial. Several cities have experimented with issuing consumer coupons worth a few hundred yuan per family, hoping to stimulate spending. Some banks have reduced interest rates, but only for clients with impeccable credit histories, excluding the majority of struggling borrowers. Larger-scale efforts to restructure mortgages have been shelved, out of fear that such measures might encourage risky financial behaviors. Proposals to expand unemployment benefits are stuck in committee debates, unable to gain approval. Families burdened by mounting debt or waiting for delayed wages cling to faint hope, watching as solutions remain elusive and promises go unfulfilled. The divide between the glossy headlines, carefully crafted to project an image of economic vitality, and the muted, often desperate reality faced by ordinary citizens continues to grow wider. One World is a meticulously curated tableau of optimism, an illusion designed to maintain public confidence and stability. The other is a struggle for survival, driven by sheer resilience and unwavering spirit in the face of hardship. The longer this disparity persists, the more trust erodes, not only in government statistics and political slogans but also in the very notion that honest work, integrity, and perseverance will ever be truly rewarded. Moving on to the eighth point. A crisis of trust that threatens to plunge the nation into profound instability. Why marry a hypocrite? This question echoes loudly across university campuses in July, reflecting a deep sense of disillusionment among the youth. Last year, only about 6,100,000 marriages were registered, a significant decline from nearly 7,700,000 in the previous year. This marks the lowest number of marriages since 1986 and is less than half of the peak recorded in 2013. According to official statistics from the Ministry of Civil Affairs, in a country with a population of over 1.4 billion, the trend signals a growing disconnect between the ideals of love and the harsh realities that many face. The decline in marriages is not merely a statistical anomaly but a symptom of deeper social unease, skepticism about the future, and a loss of faith in traditional institutions. The youth, once eager to forge new lives through unions of hope and commitment, now question whether such commitments are meaningful or even sustainable in a society where the ground beneath their feet feels increasingly unstable. With a population approaching 4 billion, the challenge of increasing the marriage rate has become an urgent and pressing concern for authorities. They are desperately trying to slow down the rapid and concerning decline in the birth rate, which threatens the future demographic stability of the nation. Traditionally, in order to register a newborn, a couple was required to present a marriage certificate, establishing the legal bond that underpinned their family union. However, in recent times, some regions have begun to loosen these rigid requirements. Now, single parents and unregistered couples are eligible to receive the same social benefits that were once reserved solely for formal, legally married families. This shift reflects a broader societal change and an acknowledgement that the old norms are no longer suitable for the evolving realities faced by many individuals. Many young adults, particularly those who have recently completed their university education, are postponing their weddings. These individuals once harbored dreams of ascending into the middle class, envisioning stable careers, homeownership, and family life. Yet, over the past 3 years, the economic landscape has shifted dramatically. City salaries, which might have once supported such ambitions, have stagnated, showing only minimal growth, barely enough to keep up with inflation or rising living costs. Meanwhile, rental prices continue to soar, increasing quarter after quarter, making it increasingly difficult for newcomers to afford a decent place to live. In fact, in key urban areas, the cost of housing now exceeds the average annual income by more than 10 times, turning the dream of homeownership into an elusive goal that seems as distant as a voyage to Mars. For many young people, the idea of purchasing an apartment is no longer a realistic prospect. It is as remote and fantastical as interplanetary travel. Their savings, instead of being accumulated for future investments like weddings or starting families, are often diverted into repaying student loans or covering the escalating medical expenses of elderly parents. The financial burden is immense, leaving little room for the traditional milestones of adult life. This economic strain only deepens the sense of exhaustion and disillusionment that pervades society. In an upscale shopping mall in Beijing, a gleaming new electric sports car catches the eye with its dazzling display, symbolizing wealth and success. Yet, just 2 subway stops away, the stark reality reveals itself. Divadcat Citire Hour convenience stores are transformed into makeshift shelters where delivery workers sleep between their busy rounds, exhausted and often overlooked. According to data from the Ministry of Finance, the disparity in wealth is stark and widespread. The wealthiest 10% of households control more than 70% of the country's liquid assets, while the bottom 50% possess less than 5%. These figures, quietly discussed among economists and policymakers, rarely make it onto the evening news, hidden behind layers of silence and censorship. The once trusted social fabric, which quietly held society together through shared norms and mutual understanding, is beginning to fray and crack under the weight of inequality and economic hardship. A nationwide survey, which was soon deleted but widely circulated in screenshots, revealed that over 60% of respondents under the age of 30 no longer expect their financial circumstances to improve significantly by the time they reach mid-career. Nearly half of these young adults doubt that their future children, if they choose to have any, will be able to achieve more than they have. Online commentary echoes this growing sense of despair. One user laments, "Marriage is too expensive," capturing the financial barrier that now looms over many young couples. Another simply states, "It's easier to stay single and spend what you earn," highlighting a shift in priorities and values. Someone else openly admits, "Life is already exhausting, so how can you get married?" The weight of economic and emotional exhaustion has become a barrier to even contemplating family life. Despite these undercurrents of disillusionment, the cafes remain quiet and subdued. The subway continues its nightly routine with flickering lights, and the horizon still glows faintly in the darkness, a reminder of the persistent pulse of life amid hardship. Today, China balances precariously on a fragile edge. Official statistics report economic growth of more than 5%, suggesting a thriving economy. Yet, beneath this surface, many households are overwhelmed by mortgage burdens, and youth unemployment continues to cast a long shadow over urban centers. The middle class, once confident in their aspirations, is now retreating from dreams that just a few years ago seemed entirely achievable. Women are increasingly working as couriers or in gig roles just to make ends meet, while unfinished skyscrapers, symbols of unfulfilled ambitions and investment, consume savings and resources. Hope is now dispensed in limited, measured doses, like a rare commodity or precious fuel, difficult to come by and even harder to sustain. State propaganda promotes slogans about rural revival and revitalization, filling television channels with images of progress and growth. Yet, a simple scroll through the internet paints a different picture: graduates lying flat in their beds, parents delaying childbirth, and workers pedaling tirelessly through the night for a handful of yuan. The question that now hangs heavily: if you enjoyed this content, please remember to click the like button and subscribe to the channel so that you won't miss out on any of our upcoming exciting videos. Your support means a great deal to us and enables us to keep producing engaging and interesting material for you to enjoy. Make sure to watch the next video that appears on your screen. I am confident you will find it just as captivating. Also, Don't forget to leave a comment sharing which country you would like us to explore next. Your suggestions help us choose future adventures. Thank you very much for taking the time to watch, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.